back, folks, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat Podcast on the Serious Angler Network, presented by Rec Lending. And guys, today's show is an awesome one that we have lined up. Basically, this is one I've been kind of thinking about for quite some time. I'm in the midst right now, making that decision on whether to buy a boat, those sorts of details. Motor wise, I've always been intrigued comparing the Merc, the Yamaha, the Suzuki, all the different freshwater 250 horsepower motors that are on today's standard 21 foot bass boats, the most common size bass boats that you see out competing and just out recreationally. And so what I've kind of done is thought through this a little bit and thought through who would be a good interview in this situation. And in my mind, it's a guy who I talk motors a lot with anytime I'm curious about a motor issue, whatever it may be. And that's Mr. Chris Williams, who not only represents Falcon Boats as a rep, but also is just a wealth of knowledge in the marine industry, has his own cohesive network related to his business. And so we'll get into a little bit of that, but also wanted to really deep dive into kind of a comparison of the Merc, the Yamaha, and the Suzuki, and get his take on each, as he's strapped him onto a lot of boats and sold a lot of boats related to all three. So let's get Chris on. Howdy, Chris.
Hey, Adam. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing great. You mentioned rainstorm. We've got it happening right now in Idaho too. It's 45 degrees and rainy, and it feels like fall. That's for dang sure.
Well, I'm ready for fall. We're gun season opens this weekend, and there's slight chance, the next week we may get a little snow flurries up there at the least. I'm hoping because that's what it's all about. Go out there in a nice, cool weather, enjoy a little snowfall and some peace and quiet.
Heck yeah, man. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. And I'm right there with you. Was lucky enough to go put a cow elk in the freezer last week or week and a half ago. And I've got a couple more trips planned as we get into late rifle and those types of things. But man, I have a friend that I saw post today of his dad that ended up shooting an absolute boomer whitetail, like Big Woods, North Idaho whitetail that I'll have to send you. That is just a sweet buck, mountain buck. These bucks that just live in the mountains up there. I'll send you it after the show. It's a pretty sweet whitetail, man.
Yeah, I'll have to see that, man. We've been watching the cell cameras a whole lot. We haven't been up there much lately, but we've been watching the cameras, and we've got some nice ones that hopefully will cooperate.
Heck yeah. Love to hear it. Love to hear you. Well, prayers and whatnot your way, man. Hopefully we can make it happen. As far as things go for you, I know we've talked a lot off air. Obviously, we've had you on with Falcon. We've had you on with other boat brands in the past. And, man, you have got a ton in the pipeline. I guess give a little insight to what you're working on personally a little bit, and then we'll kind of get into motor comparisons.
Well, as you know, in January, I left Blazer Boats after 7 years. Really didn't know what direction I was going to go. I knew there were some opportunities out there, and I just wanted to have fun, enjoy it again. And the guys at Falcon, they were right there to give me an opportunity, and I've had a blast. I love the boat. I love the company. I love the people. But as my 23-year-old son gets ready to graduate from college here in about 4 weeks, I want to leave my kids something in life, that they can be proud of. And it just kept weighing on me that when my generation leaves the marine industry, as far as the rep side of the business, there's not a lot following us up. There's not a lot of knowledge, and I do things a little different than a lot of reps do. Not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm real big about building relationships with dealers, staying in contact with, becoming friends with them. It's more than just sell them a product. I try to help them grow their business, not only with my brands, but with other things that they need for their business, so we can all be successful. And by doing so, I just felt led that it was time for me to start my own rep group. It's called Empire Sales Group. I am repping Carolina Skiff and Sea Chaser in 6 states, and Falcon. We've also signed Armada pontoon boats in the lower 48 states. That's the largest manufacturer in Canada. Really nice boats, quality built, great price point, everything built in North America. Um, we have three other reps that are working on Armada underneath us. Had some really good meetings this week in Texas with a really cool company that I'm excited about. We're about 90% getting that closed. It's a little bit outside of the marine industry, but still in the recreational world. Um, Really cool product, cool concept. Can't wait to get that locked on and announce that and hit the ground with it. So we're just you know I'm trying to help not only my kids but friends that I've met in the industry over the years, um, bringing them into Empire Sales Group. And honestly, the whole story behind it is to leave an empire for the generation following us. And so we're having a lot of fun. We're working really hard. I think Monday was a 19-hour day for me between
Dang.
travels and meetings. And you look at it sometimes, and you're running hard, you're grinding hard, and you're not seeing a lot of immediate results because in this business, it's about building business for the future. And so sometimes it's hard to get up and get going, and knowing that, hey, I'm doing this today, but it may be 6 months before I see a reward. But it's definitely it's definitely something I have a passion for, and I'm having a lot of fun. This year has been full of trials and challenges, and I face those head on, and that's what I think gets me going for the next day. And once we get past the first of the year, that'll give us about a year of this, of going at it and laying it out. And I think we're going to see our growth point after the first year.
That's fantastic, man. Good, good. And man, it just seems, I don't know what you're hearing and seeing on your end, but the conversations I've had have just been a lot of stability post election and just kind of a ripe environment where I think people are getting comfortable and seeing some significant I think there'll be some significant movement in the boat world over the next year.
We've been pinned up with high interest rates, uncertainty about the future of the country, uncertainty about an election, and all that's been pinned up for the interest rate's been going on a year and a half, 2 years. And then the election deal pretty much this whole year. As you got closer to the election, you've seen sales drop, you've seen leads drop, phone calls drop. And once that election got completed, it was complete different. The phones are starting to ring. People are buying boats. I've got another one. I have to order this afternoon for a dealer. The customer had ordered. You know, I think the biggest thing was the American people just need a little confidence in what is coming in the next 4 years. It's not that they don't want to buy stuff. They, with inflations and everything that we've had over the last few years, we couldn't continue down that path. And I think that held up a lot of people, just curious on, you know, am I going to be able to afford a boat payment, in 2 years? So having an election behind us, having some confidence in our country and our economy and our government is already making a big difference in the industry. As interest rates squeeze down, I think that's only going to improve, and people are going to get back to normal life of, work hard, play hard. So,
Yeah, totally, man. Totally agree there. And I'm curious to see and I'm curious to see what interest rates do personally too, from the aspect of we've seen kind of dips, but the stock market cranking as hard as it is, we all know if the economy um, is ripping, interest rates stay high, right? Or they aren't necessarily, or they increase to kind of slow that stuff a little bit. So I'm curious to see
yeah.
what actually happens there. But I think to me, the consumer sentiment and confidence is the biggest factor here. And I feel like people gosh, it sure seems a lot more confident right now. And that stability is going to give somebody the ability to go buy something that they maybe wouldn't have bought previously.
100%. Like I said, there's been talked to a dealer a couple days ago, last week, from the end of the election on Tuesday until Saturday, they had more leads than they had the whole entire month of October.
Holy cow.
So that's already a positive. We're starting to get phone calls. I'd been in some dealers and it was just like crickets in there. No phone calls, no customers walking in, everybody kind of staring at four walls, trying to get in touch with people they've been working deals with, and not having success. And that's, for a sales guy, man, that's a horrible place to be, is knowing that you've got to sell something to make a living, but you have no one to sell anything to. So, but future looks bright for us. I'm ready to get through the end of the year and get focused on next year. And I think it's just going to grow. Every month, I think it's going to just get better and better for us.
Yeah, totally. Well, good. Well, let's get into the motors. Again, today we're comparing the Pro XS 250 Mercury's Pro XS 250 V8, the Yamaha 250 Show, and then the Suzuki 250 Stealth motor. And I
Mm-hmm.
think first we kind of go stats wise. I'm going to share my screen here for anyone watching on YouTube. And I'll do a good job talking through, or try to anyway, for those on podcasts. But let's see if we go add this to the stage. Okay. So this is the Merc 250 Pro XS general statistics here, just on what it is, right? And I think the first thing that comes to my mind, Chris, with this is obviously Mercury's been a long time standing in the freshwater marine industry. Big change going to the V8 compared
Mm-hmm.
to everybody else. And I thought that was a super interesting move. But just general stats, they say 505 pounds on the dry weight, which is pretty dang light to me. But
you
but
know
give me
it,
your
it,
take
it
with that.
says it says real light. We've actually weighed some of them as they came in over the years. um, it's funny, that one says 505 pounds. I'm looking at the 200 right now that says 511. It's the
Huh.
same motor. The only difference is the computer, the ECU. um, the ones
Right.
we weighed, if I remember, they were somewhere around 548 pounds. This weight that they post out there, this is the lightest one they've ever weighed, with no fluids in it, no cowling on it, etc. But it really comes in that, between that 540 and 560 range,
Okay.
when you actually weigh it, which right in the same range as the Yamaha.
Hmm.
Um, the Suzuki, as you'll see here in a minute, is quite a bit heavier
Right.
of a product than what Mercury and Yamaha are.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
another thing to point out here is gear ratios. As we go across the three brands, we're going to see some difference in gear ratio. That 175 to 1, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, you could buy a Mercury, it had a 2.0 to 1 on it. As boats got lighter with that gear ratio, you would have to go to larger propellers,
Okay.
which, okay, larger propeller, you can get some speed out of a larger propeller. But what happened is one, you got to where propellers were so large that your options were limited, and in the heat of the summer, you would run into your hole shot issues. Struggle to get out of the hole, and if you step down, a pitcher prop, then you may struggle on the hitting the rev limiter.
Okay.
So Mercury and Yamaha both went to this gear ratio, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. And what it does is it allows you to have more variety of props to be able to dial your boat in specifically to where it needs to be able to get the best hole shot, the best top end and mid range, without sacrificing. So I think that was a great deal that they did. It was a kind of a have to situation with the lighter materials, lighter boats, etc., going away from
Hmm.
wood. Um, so that's something that we'll see across these as well. That there's some differences out there, and we'll explain those and conversations had around this.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I had no idea that kind of changed really in the last 25 years to make folks really dial in their altitude, conditions, everything related to that, and allows you to, I don't know, something I've really loved, have experienced anyway, is when a guy has a 4 blade prop, or a 5 blade prop in rough water, and having the torque and those
Oh,
types of things are just like, man, anymore, I'm leaning heavy on that stuff. Top end's great, but it sure is fantastic when it's rough to have complete control of everything.
man, the more blades you put on it, it seems to just carry the boat better. Like you said, more mid-range acceleration. I've done some testing. Mercury makes an amazing prop. It's the Max 5 ST. It's a pretty pricey prop. It will run on the top side, still being a 5 blade. Performs very well, but like a Max 5 or the High 5 on, say, Lake Erie, man, that's the prop. I was out there a few years ago and I was running a 4 blade, which I thought was great. And the dealer said,
Mhm.
"Here, throw this on and go try it." And I threw on a High 5 and went out. And it was a completely different boat. You can run around on 4 and 5 footers at, you know, 40, 45 miles an hour and never get a drop of water on the front deck because of the way it carried it and your acceleration. It's like driving a little Toyota Corolla around. It just easy to turn, easy to get up. Climb those big waves. It's pretty amazing what the blade on the props do. How they carry the boat different.
That is awesome. So one question that I had, or get your take on, is, you know, in the it's funny because you look at like the trends on vehicles in general. Look at, like, say, a half-ton truck, gas
Mm-hmm.
motors. Everything is moving from naturally aspirated V8s into, twin turbo V6s, into pack a punch into, and then get the fuel economy of the V6. And so I thought it was super interesting when finally decided to go four-stroke, that they went with a V8, whereas everyone else is going V6. Do you have any thoughts on that, or why they went V8?
I was told, how true it is, I don't know, but I was told that that's the only way that they could get the horsepower that they were looking for, was to have that eighth cylinder.
Mm,
So two more cylinders on it. Um, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure if that's true or not. One thing you run into in an automobile versus a boat, and I've seen it over the years with stern drive motors. That car, when it shifts and it's finally into that final gear, if you'll look, you're running down the interstate running 80 mile an hour and you're at 2,000 RPMs,
right, it's incredible.
2,500.
Yeah,
Where a boat, when you're cruising down the lake, you're turning six. So uh, you can't really do the turbo on the boat. It's not gonna give you the same fuel efficiency as you would get on a car. Now, Mercury, on their large engines, they have a couple supercharged models, like the 450R and I believe the 500R, and they're amazing. The power that they put out. We've actually run a Nispro supercharger on a SHO,
really.
and put out 450, 475 horsepower, and it's
Yes.
it's insane. But it's also not your everyday driver. Okay,
No,
um, they're made to run. At that point, fuel economy, you're not even concerned about fuel economy if you're running that.
no.
So it's just kind of different because of the gearing. The automatic transmission allows that car engine to run at lower RPMs at the higher speed, where with the propeller having to turn and move water, or you have to have RPMs to get it. So they can't really do the turbos and get fuel economy and horsepower. So naturally aspirated for the majority of the engines is the best way to go. Um, eight small four-stroke cylinders. If you really start looking at displacement, it's 4.6.
Mhm.
The SHO is like 4.2 liters.
Yep.
So even though it's got eight cylinders, it's only a very fractional size larger than the actual Yamaha V6.
Sure, sure. And as far as just curious with the Merc, well, I guess not even the Merc, but in general related to the RPMs, that's something that I've always touted towards why boat motors are so much less reliable than car motors is because it's like we're running these things at 5,000-6,000 RPMs when we're on full pad. And it's like, think about if you did that in your pickup every time. You just cranked it to 6,000 RPMs and ran it for 70 miles. Like it's
Yeah,
kind of wild.
it's the longevity. I mean, my Ram's sitting out there, be 4 years old next month, and I'm leaning pretty hard on 225,000 miles in 4 years. Um,
Yeah.
if you run those at 6,000 RPMs, we wouldn't have made it to that point. Um, so you definitely, it's a different ball game between the two. You know, I used to see guys they forget to winterize their IO motor and their ski boat, and it would crack, and they'd go to AutoZone and buy them a 350 small block and throw it in there, and then couldn't figure out why it blew up in a month and a half. Well, that 350s, yeah, it can turn 5,000, 5,500 RPMs, but it's not designed to run all the way up here. It's designed to run down here in that 2,500 range, where that
Right.
IO boat motor, it's built a lot heavier because it's designed to run 4,800 to 5,800 RPMs all the time.
All the time. Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's just a
there's
different game.
getting the effects of an EcoBoost Ford, you're not going to get. And look, here's the deal: the EcoBoost Ford, yeah, great fuel economy. Hook a boat to it, and tell me what it does. Hook a camper to it, tell me what it does. When you put it under that load, you see a significant decrease actually to where a buddy of mine's got one, and we were pulling twin boats to a boat shoot, and he's having to
Mhm.
stop and get fuel because he's getting 6 miles per gallon in his EcoBoost, and I'm getting 16. So I don't think that's going to ever be an economical thing to do.
If you're towing a lot. Yeah, and look, I had one, I liked it, wasn't the most reliable vehicle, but, it pulled the boat very, very well. I'd get 12, 13 miles a gallon pulling a bass boat with it. I'd get 22 when I was unloaded, but not to get on truck topic, but man,
Mhm.
I am really liking those little 3-liter the little 3 little Duramax that I've got. That thing has been a beast so far
I've
and
got a
gets
friend that's
crazy.
got one and loves it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
I got a
not
friend
made
that's got
so
one.
big
He
stuff.
loves it. It's been great for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So,
awesome.
um,
Well, the show now. Let's get to the show as
so
far as
yeah,
stats.
yep. And we've got pretty much they're very close across the board on a lot of things. Like you look at the alternators, Mercury's running an 85 amp, Yamaha's running a 70 amp, but you get to the Suzuki 250 Stealth and it's a 54 amp. With today's electronics, lithium batteries, help us keep those things going, but it makes you wonder why they haven't stepped up their alternator game to charge these big batteries faster. Um, I would think that would be something that Suzuki needs to address. Be able to charge these big batteries up faster with all these guys, running 4 or 5 units on their boats. Um, I think I'm running an 18-inch MBT on the front. And I've only got one, but you see guys out there that's got two or three. So that's one of the
I and
things that I see different on the specs between the three motors.
something that I've done to get away from that, Chris, is I would recommend it if anyone has the capacity or is running a lot of electronics. And I'm actually on my next boat coming down in the amount of electronics I'm running. But I've the last couple of
Mm-hmm.
years have run trolling motor batteries, a dedicated 100 amp hour or whatever it may be lithium battery just for my electronics, so never does anything but just keeps my graphs full. And then I've got a cranking battery, right, that's just for my an AGM cranking battery for my boat and my big motor.
And I've seen a lot of guys do that. I've run the 170 amp hour monster starting battery the last few years, and I've I've never gotten below like 83%, and that was on a long, long day. But you're also looking at the trend is 70 to 85 amps, but they're down at 54. But I know guys that are running Suzuki's and they haven't had any problems. So, not saying that it is going to cause a problem. Um, Across the board on warranties, you have Mercury has a 3 year, Yamaha has a 3 year, but Suzuki has a 5 year.
Mm.
So that's a little bit of a game changer there.
And you
Um,
can upgrade all
you
three
go
of those,
across the
correct?
Yes, you can. Yeah, for a certain price, you can upgrade all of them. And you catch certain times. I believe Yamaha, I think it runs through sometime in December. They're giving a couple extra years of warranty. With their purchase and warranty registration of a motor. So if you buy at the right times of the year, you can get those for free. Mercury kind of does the same thing from time to time as well, where they give each dealer so many upgrades that they can offer to customers.
Mm.
Um, that Suzuki motor, that stealth color, it's pretty cool. It's a good looking motor.
Sharp.
Suzuki's came a long way in with their outboard freshwater program. They've got a guy down there that's over all of it. He's pretty phenomenal. Um, Going down, we were talking about gear ratios. You go down and look at the gear ratio in the Suzuki, and you notice the Suzuki has a 2.08 to 1 gear ratio.
Mm.
So that's something that I've talked to them a lot about over the past. I've tried to get them to try a 175 or a 185, and from my years in the car industry, what I've learned is the Japanese don't always listen to what the American people suggest, or it takes them a really long time before they do. Um, Honestly, my personal opinion, I think that's the only thing that holds the Suzuki back in the bass boat market.
Mm.
We're 90% of us are go fast people out here. We want to go as fast as we can make the boat go. And the Suzuki is going to be a little bit slower because of that 2.08 to 1 gear ratio. Um, the motor is very reliable and probably has the best fuel economy out of the three.
Wow.
Um, the only thing is it's just a couple mile an hour slower on the top side. And I think that's been the biggest thing that's held Suzuki back in the bass industry for all the years is everybody's been about, as fast as they can make it go. Um, but, the two Japanese brands are probably the most reliable, best fuel economy motors that we have out of the three. Yamaha kind of falls in the middle. Um, it's it and Mercury are very close, but Suzuki is in its own ballpark when it comes to fuel economy.
Mm.
And
Really?
talking to the Japanese, yeah, talking to the Japanese about gear ratios and all this, it's kind of like they look at you like you're stupid because you're worried about going fast, and they're over here worried about reliability and fuel economy. I remember Dean Rojas won a tournament, a BPT, a few years ago, and one of the things he contributed it to was fuel economy. All the other guys that were making this long run that he was making, they would have to run past their spot and top off with fuel and then come back and fish to where they had enough fuel to get back, where Dean was actually able to do it without going to get fuel.
Mm.
And it gave him more fishing time, more early morning fishing time than they were getting, etc. And he contributed. That win had a lot to do with the fuel economy of his Suzuki. So we look at it as speed, getting there faster, getting there first, having more fishing time because you can run it faster. Those are the things I look at. But there's also it comes
Look at
to
John
comes
Cox,
into
man.
play sometimes.
John
Oh yeah,
Cox is going to beat your butt, and he's going to go 60 miles an hour. You know what I mean? Like, I,
absolutely.
as I get, and maybe you're selling me a little bit on this Suzuki, to be honest with you, Chris, just because as I get older, this is sounding soft now that I'm saying this out loud. It's like, man, I don't want stuff to break. I'm sick of stuff breaking. It's just part of bass boats and owning boats. But it's also,
Yep.
the reliability factor, the fuel economy factor. It's like, man, those are neat. If they could figure out a little bit more speed, and don't get me wrong, there's I love going 75 miles an hour in a
You
bass boat, but that is interesting, and I think that will appeal to a lot of people right now. out there.
And the speed is it's not like it's 10 mile an hour off. In the 250 class, it's a couple miles per hour. I actually had Cody Meyer's boat running really well year before last
Really?
with the Suzuki with a Scorpion prop on it. That that motor really runs well with the Scorpion, and so he was running mid to upper 70s in his boat with it. But the big deal is, I think the biggest deal you see sometimes is, how long are you going to keep the boat? I mean, if your guy's going to flip your boat every year, your Suzuki hasn't really caught on a whole lot yet in the bass industry.
It's a fair point, just as far
Excuse
as
me.
popularity.
So you look at resale and how many people you have that are actually looking to buy the Suzuki motor when you resell it.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, great motor of choice. I got a guy he doesn't care about speed. Going to be his last boat he ever buys. I'm like, buy the Suzuki. I mean, why not? I mean, it's got a great hole shot. It's got great fuel economy and great reliability. It's probably going to outlast you. So,
Wow.
but as far as me buying one personally for myself, knowing that I get rid of a boat every year, I look at how many people are looking for a Mercury, a Yamaha, or a Suzuki powered boat. Um, it's pretty simple. We sell more Mercury and Yamahas on bass boats, hand over fist, way different than what Suzuki is. Now, Suzuki's growing on that market, and eventually I think it's going to become a stronger player in that industry. But if you're a guy that's looking for a good, solid motor that's going to be reliable, last you a long time, great fuel economy, and you're not worried about selling it every year or two, then Suzuki's a great choice. So,
Yeah, and it's
um,
interesting. Another factor, Chris, that I think is worth bringing up is dealer locations, just related to that, and
mhm.
then service crews, right? I mean, it's been kind of common
Yep.
at your higher level tournaments. You've got Mercury service crews there, you've got Yamaha service crews there, but the Suzuki guys have kind of been on their own, and they kind of joke and say, "Well, we don't have to worry about stuff because it's reliable," which is true to some degree. Um, but if you have something that goes wrong, it's probably a little bit harder to go find a Suzuki dealer in the inland, US versus your coastal kind of states.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but they've really grown on their dealer network, and a lot of that I think has to do with the pontoon world and the small engine world.
Mm,
Suzuki's and pontoons and bay boats and duck boats is pretty strong. So there's a pretty good dealer network out there. I know a lot of the dealer reps for them, and they're great guys, and they've done a great job. So there's a lot of those reps out there that have set up dealers. So we're finding more dealer locations now. On the higher level tournaments, they do have a guy that he carries around some couple rower units and things like that in case you knock one off, a couple props. Um, but they do not have a service trailer out there. And I know in the beginning when Rojas went with them, um, they were pretty strong about saying that we don't need one. Our motors don't break. We don't need one. So Suzuki's always been known, even in the motocross world and stuff, to build a very strong, reliable product, and that shows. But like you said, if you smoke a stump at Sandy Cooper or something like that, and you don't have a backup lower unit, the odds of a dealer actually having a lower unit in stock and not having a service trailer, that does throw a curveball in things.
totally, totally. Let's get into cost on all three here. And you sell
Mm-hmm.
a lot of boats, different motors in the back, and of course, this is going to vary on deals and dealers and whatever else. But just generally speaking, what's our kind of difference in cost between the three motors?
With Mercury and Yamaha, there was always a misconception of Yamaha was a couple $1,000s more than the Mercury. But in the four-stroke world, I'm looking at one, some cost stuff right here, and you're looking at like $380 difference between the two motors. Then on rigging, you do see a little bit of difference on the rigging cost, about $400 difference on the rigging cost of the Yamaha versus the Mercury. The Suzuki Stealth motor, you know, Suzuki was with the SS motor, they were a couple $1,000s cheaper than both of them. Um, Rigging was fell right in the middle, but with the Stealth motor, they went to digital throttle and shift, um, which makes the engine and the rigging a little bit more expensive. So from what I've seen, is there's not much difference in the three brands as far as pricing.
Really
And it's not
interesting.
like, yeah, it's not like it used to be where, it was $1,800 more if you wanted to get a Yamaha over a Mercury. And a lot of people still have that misconception that there's a lot of price difference between each brand, but there's really not that much price difference between them anymore. They're all fall with less than $1,000 of each other. Um, like I said, the Suzuki SS was mechanical rigging, like the Yamaha and the Mercury are. It was quite a bit less expensive. Looking at this here, it was $1,800 cheaper than the Mercury, and it was actually, this sheet I'm looking at here is actually showing that Mercury on this sheet here is about, see, 175, $180 higher than the Yamaha now. But everybody's had different price increases over the last few years. So
Right.
this manufacturer that I'm looking at here that has them all three of them priced out, you're looking at about $175 more for the Mercury over the Yamaha. But when you come down to the rigging, you're $300 more on the rigging on the Yamaha. So at the end of the day, there's a $125 difference.
Wow.
Um, I don't have the new Suzuki Stealth pricing pulled up here, um, but before, like I said, they were $1,800 cheaper with the SS motor than what you were seeing with the Mercury and the Yamaha. Actually, it was actually even $2,000 from the Yamaha. By the time you go to digital throttle and shift setup and rigging, you're gonna be another $2,500 higher. So you're gonna be right there with Yamaha pricing and Mercury pricing.
Got it.
So
So
price wise, everybody's pretty close to the same.
okay, and explain the digital throttle and shift
Um,
situation with Suzuki. That's new for 2024, right? As far as on these stealth motors, or
when I think it was actually 23, they came out with the stealth motor. They had gone to that. Um, and it's technology that all the manufacturers use a lot on the larger engines above 300. It is fly by wire, so you don't have a throttle cable, you don't have a shift cable. As soon as you hit it, it's instant. Current flew through the sensor and it's there. Does have an amazing acceleration. There's no lag in it. Um,
wow,
but it costs you more money. When you go to say Mercury, Yamaha, and go to a Precision or a DTS motor, you're going to look at $2,500 to $3,000 of difference. I think that was the thing with Evinrude that kind of held them back. Evinrude was a strong, powerful motor. Now we all know that once you got around 500 hours, you were kind of chancing it, but it was fly by wire. So they didn't sell as well against a Mercury, even though they were more powerful and faster than a Mercury two stroke, but they didn't sell as well because no one was going to give $2,800 more for an Evinrude than what they were going to give for a Mercury. So Suzuki's real high on the digital throttle and shift, and I had a lot of conversations with them back in 2020, and they were real high on that, and I was trying to push them toward geared ratio. As a bass boat owner, I don't think we need digital throttle and shift. I mean, if I was running twin engines on a 35-foot sea chaser and was using joystick controls and etc., yeah, you need that digital throttle and shift so it can operate with the system. But as far as a bass boat, I mean, we go forward, reverse, and wide open. So it's just, to me, it's pointless. And like I said, that's personal opinion. Some people like, oh man, I got to have it. But from the majority of the customers I've seen out there, it's just kind of pointless. They don't even know what digital throttle and shift is. Most customers don't.
Yeah.
Um, so you're spending a couple $1,000s, on DTS stuff that you're really not getting much in return for. Oh, does it shift smoother? Yeah, but you know what? Mercury's shift cable goes to a sensor instead of an old slide like it used to. So the Mercury actually shifts just as smooth as the DTS Suzuki does. So, and as far as me, I'm running a Yamaha, as most of you know. When I shift, I'm just shifting one time. It's not like I'm grinding, a 13 speed on a big truck. I'm shifting forward or shifting reverse. So for me, I think digital throttle and shift is overkill for a bass boat.
Got it. And I've heard, and that's it's interesting. So, um, one of my buddies that does run a Suzuki, one of these new ones, the couple of things
Mm-hmm.
that he's commented on has been that the mid-range power has been incredible in rough water, and then obviously the ability to turn
Mm-hmm.
your hot foot on and off has been nice for like no
Yep.
wake zones. Um,
Yep.
I thought those features were sort of neat, and he's liked it from that perspective. But I totally agree. That's the first thing I noticed when I jumped into a Mercury. I borrowed a friend's boat with a Mercury V8 on it, and the shifting just from the Yamaha to the Merc was like, whoa, this is
Mm-hmm.
wild. I mean, it is, you're right on those Mercuries, which is probably, like you said, similar to what the Suzuki's like. Just at
Mm-hmm.
the when you're loading and unloading boats, when you're doing a lot of like forward, backwards, those kinds of maneuvers, it is kind of wild how much smoother that is. Now, does that really matter? Is there a wear and tear? It's just that I'm used to that old, EFI motor where it's like, boom, like locks in or locks
Yeah.
forward, but it's on those new Mercs, it is pretty dang smooth as stuff goes.
Yeah. It is. Instead of having like Mercury still has the slider, shifts forward, neutral, reverse, which moves a lever that goes, or Yamaha does, that goes down through, and so your cable's actually pulling that, right?
Mhm.
Well, Mercury's goes to a sensor that tells the computer to tell another sensor to shift forward, shift reverse. So
Okay.
you do eliminate some of that stuff. Now, I'm kind of old school on some of this stuff. Some of this nice, fancy, cool stuff breaks a lot more than the
Gonna
old stuff
say
did.
technology, man.
Um, just like I'm anti-digital switching in my bass boat. Yeah, I get it. You still got switches there, but those switches are hooked to a digital module, solid state system. All it takes is a drop of water to get inside that wire anywhere, and it's going to corrode right up into the module, and you're
You're
done.
done.
I would rather have toggle switches. They break too, but they're a whole lot easier to bypass, replace, repair out on the road. So, Mercury or Yamaha, from what I've seen about Yamaha, they've kind of always looked at it, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Um, so it's been proven for many, many years to work. Um, but the Mercury, just shifting that sensor, it is a smoother transition.
Totally.
You
Totally. Man, I love that.
know.
Um, I think a good way to kind of break things down here, just to wrap things up, would be based on based on all of the kind of different topics here, just ranking them, like which one gets the nod, you know what I mean, in each of these categories. So
Mm-hmm.
let's start with okay, I've got like 7 or 8 categories written down, but let's start with just hole shot, getting out of the hole, 3 different motors set up correctly for your boat, your prop, jack plate, whatever. Where would you rank the 3 motors?
I think that Yamaha and Suzuki are going to be very close to each other in that.
Okay.
Um, and they're going to be the winners of that category. Um, One of the things that Mercury does is they send a lot of exhaust above the water to get that cool rumbling sound when you start it up that everybody loves. But what that does is, that takes cavitation and thrust out that actually allows that prop to spin up faster. The Japanese companies send more out or pretty much all of it out the prop. So you're getting that cavitation and that thrust to spin that prop up faster. And those two motors are the best hole shots.
Okay. Okay. Yamaha, Suzuki, Mercury. Now, what about so top end speed between the three?
It depends on holes a lot. One thing that I've noticed, I feel I can get more speed out of the Yamaha on most of the applications that I've run, due to the shape of the lower unit and the pickups, the water pickups in the lower unit. I can run that higher. With the Yamaha having a stronger hole shot and being able to run higher, I can run about one pitch of prop bigger than what I can run on a Mercury, because I've got the power to get out of the hole, and being able to run it higher, you get some cavitation, you get some surface piercing, so you can get the RPMs out of that bigger prop. Bigger prop, big RPMs equals more speed until you get to the point of getting too much prop slip. So from what I've experienced, I've been able to make the 250 show run faster than the Mercury or the Suzuki. In that category, like I said, the Suzuki's gonna be number three
Right.
just because of gear ratio.
Got it. Got it. So Yamaha, then Merc, then Suzuki, good ways behind there. All right, now fuel efficiency, and I know we kind of gone through some of this, but just so we can rank them, go ahead on that one.
Suzuki, Yamaha, Mercury. Suzuki is phenomenal. Um, Yamaha, you're going to see just a couple gallons per hour difference between it and Mercury. What I've experienced with Mercury has been 25 gallons per hour at wide open throttle, give or take just a little bit. With the Yamaha, I've seen 22 to 24, just depending on application. So it's not a huge difference, but when you're running 68, 70 miles, and you're running an hour and a half, you go doing the calculations. Well, that day you just save 3 more gallons of gas. That may have been the difference of stopping or not stopping.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I would have to go 1, 2, 3 on that.
Okay. And then cost, they're all the same in your eyes, pretty dang close, within a couple $100 of each other
They're
right now.
they're, they're close enough that when you're buying a 70, 80, $90,000 bass boat, that it doesn't matter on the difference of the engine pricing. It's so close.
Got it. Okay. Now, warranty, stock warranty coming on the boats right now.
Yep, Yamaha and Mercury both have a 3 year. Um, Yamaha has won so many customer service awards in the industry for customer service and taking care of their customers. I know you experienced something a while back with yours. Um, you know, Yamaha was able to help you out with that and get that going. Um, so Yamaha is really strong on customer service side of things, warranty. Um, Mercury and Yamaha, same length of warranty. Um, I've seen at times where Mercury has really good customer service, and then I've seen where they just completely drop the ball.
Hmm.
Um, Suzuki, honestly, I haven't had to worry about a lot of Suzuki warranty stuff.
And
Being
they come
honest,
with a
they've
5 year.
got a 5 year and they're strong. Yeah, yeah, they've got a
Yeah.
5 year and they're pretty strong. So
Awesome. Okay. Now, as far as dealer locations or dealer network, I guess in general for guys, are they all pretty
you
even at
know,
this point?
Yamaha and Mercury's pretty even. Suzuki's getting pretty close. They've got a lot of dealers. You just may run into certain areas of the country that they just don't have any dealer network. But it's very few. I mean, through the last 2018, Yamaha got behind. They couldn't get enough motors to the U.S. Mercury released a 4-stroke, and then all of a sudden now you can't get Mercury's, but you can get Yamahas. And so during that process of that, and then COVID, you've seen a lot of dealers be willing to pick up a new line and pick up one of the others, to where they have two choices, sometimes all three choices, for their customers, to where they can continue to do business if there is a hiccup. So they've all got a pretty good dealer network for the most part.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And now weight. Go ahead, go through just the rankings of the three for just the weight of the motor.
I want to say Yamaha's like 564, 567. Mercury shows on my screen over here at 511, but knowing, you know, that I've weighed them and they're going to fall right in that same category as Yamaha. But that's the other kicker when you get to Suzuki. It's 624, I believe.
Hmm.
Um, it's about 60 to 75 pounds heavier than what you see with the Mercury Yamaha.
Yeah.
It's hanging a lot of times 10 inches off a jack plate back there, so that could be a significant difference. Depending on what hole you're running, it could be a significant difference on how it handles. How the boat handles rough water, how the boat comes out of the hole, etc. So I would love to see Suzuki lighten that thing up, 30, 40 pounds. So, but I would say Yamaha and Mercury are close
It's
enough
a
to
big
be a tie on the weight, and Suzuki's just running behind a little bit on it.
Got it. Okay. And then we've kind of talked about this throughout, but the last category I've got down is just reliability, just straight in general reliability.
Suzuki's probably the most reliable motor on the market.
And
I
then
think it would have to
next,
go Suzuki, Yamaha, and then Mercury.
got it. Got it. Cool, man. Well, that gives folks some thoughts and buying thought process going into 2025 here and a holiday season in 2024, and hopefully that gives a breakdown for people on it all because man,
Yeah,
it seems like it's kind of distinct advantages and disadvantages to all of them.
there's a few little advantages and disadvantages to all of them, but here at the end of the day, it's not what it was 20, 30 years ago. God, you didn't buy a Force because you knew it was going to break down every time you went to the water. You know, uh, Evinrude Fick motor, you just knew it was a matter of time. It was a ticking time bomb that was going to blow up on you. The G2s, you knew that, man, they're strong. They run, with the best of them. But when you get to 4 to 500 hours, then you had to start really paying attention because there's a good chance that you were going to blow one of them up. Same thing with the Mercury Optimax. The nickname for it early on was the OptiPop.
Right.
Um, so back in the two-stroke days, technology's come so far that before you were concerned about how long is this motor going to last, before it blows up. Back then we were worrying about, oh man, it's got 400 hours on it. It's going to be hard to sell. And that's one of the biggest questions I get asked about used boats all the time is how many hours? And I just want to look at people and go, does it really matter? We're running a four-stroke now. How many hours are on your truck? You know, and that's one thing that has changed. We have three great motor brands that build great, some great motors. Honestly, when it gets to the big motors, I may lean more Mercury. Yamaha's got the big 425, 450 now. That's a heavy dude. Mercury's got the 400 V10, the 450R, etc., and they're a lot lighter motors. And they're Mercury's put a lot of emphasis the last several years on their big motor program, and they've done a phenomenal job with it. The new V10, 350, and 400 is a phenomenal motor. Um, they've even got the 600, V12. But Mercury's put a lot of emphasis on that big motor. What I see with the 250 Pro XS today versus say 2018-19 when it was released, I feel like they dialed the 250 class motors back a little bit, and not putting out as much as what they were the first year or two. I would love to see that dialed back up a little. Um, but we have three good choices. I don't think at the end of the day, if you study and figure out which one's going to be best for your application and what you're trying to accomplish, I don't think you're going to go wrong with any brand. They're all three, you know, a whole lot more reliable than what we used to have. I mean, God, you think about it. How many people do you see now? If you go down to the Gulf, that are going way offshore in a single engine boat. That never happened with a two stroke. I mean, if you did, you were crazy. It's probably not going to start and get you back now with the confidence of a four stroke. And that's what people need to relate. That four stroke motor, you have a four stroke motor in your car or in your truck, right? And you don't worry about how many hours is on it. Um, I mean, God, I'd hate to see how many hours are on my truck at
I know.
225,000 miles. But so one of the mindsets that I think customers, especially buying used boats, need to get away from worrying about hours as much.
Hmm.
Um, we do a whole lot more idling nowadays with sonars and stuff like that. And these boats, uh, you know, 150, 200 hours on them in a year, and people go, "Oh my gosh, got too many hours." They last 3, 4, 5,000 hours. I have seen a Suzuki customer replace his motors at 11,000 hours. He was a guide. I mean, and we have customers that are getting upset over 150, 200 hours. It's not a two-stroke anymore. That's what I'll tell customers. Everybody listen. This is not a two-stroke. This is a four-stroke. They last a lot longer because they have internally lubricated parts. We're not oiling through gas. These things last 3, 4, 5,000 hours as long as they're taken care of. I mean, you're going to have an occasion where one doesn't, but for the most part, they have that potential to go that type of hours, and we get tore up over a couple hundred. So, my thing would be concerned with how much warranty's left. Can I get more warranty? What's the condition of the hull? What's the condition of the lower unit? How's it been serviced? Those are the things that you need to worry about when you're buying a used boat, more than how many hours are on a four-stroke motor.
I love it, man.
So,
I
but I
love it.
don't think you can make a bad choice.
Yeah, they've come a long way. They're all quality motors, and it sounds like there's little ups and downs and those types of things, but
Yep.
overall quality, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to preferences and applications, what you're wanting to do with your boat, what your plans are for the future with your boat, etc.
Sure, sure. Awesome. Well, good stuff, Chris. Man, I really appreciate you taking the time out, and you're a really busy guy. So
Yeah.
thanks for breaking these down for everybody. And man, how can folks follow along with you and everything you've got going on?
Man, follow Empire Sales Group on Facebook. Follow me, Chris Williams, on Facebook. We've got a lot of fun things that we're working on this year. Partnered up with a great friend of mine who has come out of retirement from the media website marketing world and started a new company called Big Splash Interactives. Just absolutely crazy SEO stuff that this guy's got going on. And he's sending me a bunch of stuff at midnight last night, a new site for one of my dealers he launched about 15 days ago in one of the largest markets in the country. And in 15 days, they're already ranking like fifth or sixth. Their site's already ranking fifth or sixth out of everybody. So he's got some really awesome things that he's doing out there. So anybody that's needs a business website for recreational vehicle world, man, this is the guy to get in touch with. It's Troy over at Big Splash Interactives. We've had a really good time this year. Like I said, it's been a very trying year, but we work hard and we have a lot of fun doing what we do. So
Love it. Love it. Good stuff, Chris. Awesome, man. Well, we'll talk to you here soon, and good luck and safe travels with all you've got going on, holidays, deer hunting, work, get it all. And yeah, man, we'll stay in touch.
all right, man, sounds great. I appreciate it.